In Hong Kong, a group of illegal immigrants is waiting in a large container for their departure to South Korea. One of the migrants appears to be seriously ill, but the sender pays no attention to this and gives the green light for transportation. In the small town of Bundang, near Seoul, an attractive female doctor named Kim In-hae is trapped in a car at the edge of a cliff. Rescuer Kon Ji-gu arrives to help her, trying to pull her out of the mangled vehicle. However, he accidentally tears her skirt and offers her his shirt to cover herself. At the last moment, Ji-gu manages to pull In-hae out of the car just before it plunges into the abyss. Later, In-hae returns the shirt to the rescuer and asks him to retrieve a bag with valuable items from the pit, but Ji-gu explains that it is impossible. When the container with the migrants arrives in Bundang, two smuggler brothers conceal it. As they cut open the doors, they are hit by a foul stench. They notice the only survivor, Moon Sai, begging them for help. He claims that all the others died during the journey. The brothers put Moon Sai in their van and soon stop at a large parking lot. Noticing a police car nearby, one of them insists that they leave immediately, but the other admits he is feeling very unwell. At that moment, Moon Sai jumps out of the vehicle and runs away, and the man fails to catch him. The brothers decide to go to a pharmacy to buy medicine for the one who is sick and getting worse. He starts coughing heavily, spreading the unknown virus to everyone present in the store. In-hae informs her colleagues and Professor Yang that the research results were lost along with her bag. She promises to recover the data by the start of the conference. Meanwhile, Ji-gu and his partner descend to the wrecked car to retrieve a bag belonging to a woman. Upon opening it, they find the owner's mobile phone, which rings with a call from her daughter, Miru. The rescuer arranges to meet the girl in the park, where he returns her bag and tells her a little about his work. Miru asks him for his business card, in case she needs to contact him again. At the same time, the virus continues to spread rapidly throughout the city, with infected individuals contaminating dozens of citizens on public transport and in schools. One of the brothers, feeling a sudden deterioration in his health, starts coughing up blood. His brother immediately takes him to the hospital. At that moment, In-hae is pleased with the return of the flash drive containing important data, but she is unexpectedly called by the hospital and urgently asked to come. She enters the operating room and sees one of the brothers completely covered in his own blood. While inspecting his personal belongings, she finds a phone with pictures of a container filled with bodies. In-hae realizes that the virus came from there. The doctors suspect it might be avian flu, but they need to locate the container to determine the exact cause of the infection. Meanwhile, doctors and politicians hold emergency meetings due to the crisis situation. Professor Yan explains that the virus is spreading at an incredible speed and kills the infected within 60 hours. He insists that Bundang needs to be immediately isolated to prevent further spread of the infection. However, the city's mayor mocks this proposal, believing that the virus does not pose a serious threat. While the debates continue, at this time, Ji-gu decides to treat Miru to something delicious, and they sit down in a nearby cafe. While they are sitting at the table, the little girl starts to fall asleep from exhaustion. Suddenly, panic breaks out. Ji-gu gets distracted and loses Miru in the crowd of frightened shoppers. Meanwhile, politicians and leading doctors decide to evacuate the city urgently by helicopter, simultaneously blocking all routes leading into and out of Bundang. In-hae tells Professor Yang that she cannot leave until she finds her daughter Miru. Yang promises to help her get out of the city with her daughter as soon as they are both found. After arriving in Seoul, the politicians and doctors meet with the president and the prime minister. The prime minister officially announces a complete blockade of Bundang, and Professor Yan holds a press conference where he speaks about the deadly virus that has spread throughout the city. As a result of this announcement, real panic begins in Bundang. Soon, In-hae rushes to Ji-gu, and together they finally find the girl. In-hae suggests that Ji-gu leave the city with them, but he refuses, deciding to stay in Bundang to continue rescuing those in need. In-hae and her daughter head to the airport, where a helicopter is waiting for them. However, as they approach the boarding area, Miru starts coughing. The military, noticing this, do not allow them to board. The authorities order all survivors in Bundang to go to the quarantine center. In-hae and her daughter are also forced to comply with this order. Upon arrival at the quarantine center, In-hae tries to explain that she is a virologist and can help fight the epidemic, but no one is willing to listen to her. She, like everyone else, is sent to quarantine. Meanwhile, in the emergency headquarters created to contain the virus, further measures to prevent its spread are being discussed. An American infectious disease specialist reports that in the quarantine camp, people are being examined to separate the infected from the healthy. Professor Yan is certain that many citizens will become infected in this place, but the politicians do not take this into account. They plan to cut off mobile communication and internet in Bundang, so that the local residents cannot tell the world about the horrors happening there. In the quarantine center, while In-hae and Miru are standing in line, The mother notices symptoms of infection on her daughter's neck and realizes that they could be separated. Using a trick, In-hye manages to get Miru into the non-infected zone. Soon, Ji-gu brings Fu and notices signs of infection in the girl. He fears that Miru could quickly spread the virus to others, but In-hye is not concerned about the people around her. She is not ready to part with her daughter. The soldiers find Monsai in the quarantine center and bring him to the infectious disease specialists. The doctors are surprised because he is the only one who has survived after being infected with the new virus. The medics decide to extract antibodies from his blood to develop a vaccine and seek In-hye's help. She successfully completes the task. However, before using the vaccine on people, at least minimal testing is necessary. Later, the military receives In-hye's test results and discovers that she is infected. They plan to transfer her to the infected ward, assigning her a number. Ji-gu decides to save In-hye and declares that this number belongs to him, understanding that he will be sent to the infected zone. Kyeon-up, deciding to help his friend, obtains a VIP pass from a former rescue squad commander and helps Ji-gu escape from the zone, convincing the military of his health. Meanwhile, In-hye waits for the other doctors to leave the laboratory and extracts antibodies from Monsai's blood again. On the way out of the infected zone, Ji-gu notices a headband on the ground belonging to Miru and panics. Returning back, he finds himself in a huge hole where many citizens are on the brink of death. Ji-gu is horrified to see that even those still alive are being packed into tight plastic bags. Not finding the girl among the survivors, he quickly runs to the stadium where he witnesses a ghastly scene. A huge crane lifting dozens of bodies and dropping them into a massive pile of dead, which are burned with powerful flamethrowers. The sight is too harrowing to watch. At the same time, In-hye comes to after fainting and rushes to the infected block. Young soldier, heart trembling, notices his mother among the infected. Realizing she will be burned along with the others, he becomes furious and tells the infected about the dreadful fate awaiting them. This news triggers a revolt among the people, who refuse such a demise. The soldiers hesitate to open fire on their own countrymen, fearing the consequences. After the laboratory with the antibodies is destroyed, the doctors decide to urgently evacuate. Denji spots Monsai and stabs him several times, avenging his brother's death. In this chaos, the military pushes In-hye into a car along with the other doctors. The car speeds away just as Ji-gu and Miru arrive at the scene. In the emergency headquarters in Seoul, political leaders panic as they watch Bundin plunge into absolute chaos. The president is convinced that the only way to stop the disorder is to create a vaccine from the retrieved antibodies as soon as possible. How American Representative Schneider, assessing the threat scale, warns of a possible global pandemic and convinces the prime minister to allow firing on the townspeople to prevent the spread of the virus. The president becomes enraged upon learning that shooting In-hye reaches the border with Bundin and informs the president that her daughter has developed antibodies and that they need to urgently take the girl to Seoul to create a vaccine. The president agrees with her suggestion, understanding that this may be their only chance. However, the prime minister and Schneider, utilizing the martial law, seize power in the country and order the military to shoot anyone trying to leave Bundin. In-hye and Miru hurry to meet each other, trying to cross the city border to reunite. After everything they've been through, the protesting residents of Bundin, outraged by what is happening, begin moving toward the city border. In response, Schneider orders American bombers to destroy the city to prevent further spread of the infection. However, the president of South Korea intervenes, reminding that the city's defense forces still obey his command, and orders the activation of air defense systems to repel the attack. Realizing his plan is doomed to fail, Schneider is forced to recall the planes. Miru is urgently evacuated to Seoul, where medics plan to use her blood to create antibodies and develop a vaccine to save the population from the terrible disease. On this note, the film comes to an end, leaving viewers with hope for the future. Thank you for watching and see you next time.